Almost all crypto companies you interact with are operating offshore. Offshoring has always been seen as a suspicious thing to do. However, there are many reasons for these companies to operate offshore. I would go as far as to say, after becoming knowledgeable about the business environment in crypto, you too would like to go offshore. What is an offshore jurisdiction, you might wonder? Offshore jurisdiction is a country that provides financial services to non-residents, hence the term offshore. Some popular offshore jurisdictions are Singapore, Delaware, Hong Kong, the Cayman Islands, Cyprus, United Arab Emirates, and many more. Before I get into the reasons why, let's check out some crypto companies that are offshore. Binance, KuCoin, FTX, Chainlink, BTCM, Solana, and many more. Let's get into some of the main reasons why crypto companies would choose to operate offshore. Regulation. Offshore countries often have less regulation, allowing startups and companies to flourish. The less regulation you have to deal with, the easier it is to operate. Crypto is still a relatively new financial market. However, there are already countries scrambling to regulate it, making it drastically harder for new companies to establish themselves. For example, in the EU, there is so much regulation simply around operating a business to the point where unless you get investors or have a lot of personal savings, you won't be able to get up by yourself due to the amount of compliance and legal help you will need to be legally operating. One such cost will be finding accountants who are knowledgeable about cryptocurrency, lawyers to form the company, and also making sure you are compliant. If you have EU customers, you must be GDPR compliant, or General Data Protection Regulation. GDPR compliance is more than just a front-end form letting users know what data you are storing of them. It also encompasses how data is stored internally, as well as the risk assessments and protocols for data leaks, among other things. Then of course, there is AML, or anti-money laundering, which to summarize is about how money moves inside your company and if any of it is from illegal activity. Another big one is KYC, or Know Your Customer, which is about attaching real identity to an online account. This, again, is to help curb nefarious actors. Some jurisdictions, such as the European Union, are also pushing for stricter crypto regulations today, as well as drafting regulations that will be discussed in the future. For many entrepreneurs, the writing is on the wall, and it does not bode well for crypto entrepreneurs in the EU. One regulatory framework being drafted in the EU is MiCA, or Markets in Crypto Assets. MiCA is still fairly new, and we're not exactly sure how it will affect the whole market. However, MiCA requires all crypto asset service providers to be authorized to operate within the EU. Essentially, they will need government approval, probably in the form of a license to operate.
Service providers will need an authorization in order to operate within the EU.
Along with all of that, EU is also trying to crack down on unhosted crypto wallets. This is essentially an attack on one of the core principles of crypto, where you can own your wallet if you have the private keys. However, they're trying to make that illegal, where all of your crypto must be stored in a centralized entity, such as an exchange. Fewer costs. There can be lower startup and operating costs offshore. These cost reductions benefit the business, which will benefit the user in the end. For those not in the know, most countries have a value-added tax, or a VAT, meaning if you were to buy anything from a store or online, you would have to add this tax. For example, this tax ranges up to 27% on most products in Hungary. In the USA, there is a similar tax in some states called a GST, or Goods and Service Tax. This GST, or VAT tax, is pushed onto the customer rather than the company. Hence, if the company strategically placed itself in a business environment with low or no GST or VAT tax, the customer would be able to receive the same product or service at a lower price. This is just one example. There are often many more taxes that a company has to pay, such as corporate taxes, state taxes, etc. Another avenue where you end up having fewer costs is in the company administration. Most, if not all, countries in the EU require you to get an accountant and have regular accounting done. This is basically a fixed cost on the company regularly. However, some offshore jurisdictions require far less paperwork, or even in some cases none at all. For instance, in the British Virgin Islands, there are no strict reporting requirements, and an international business company, which is similar to an LLC outside of BVI, does not need to prepare financial statements or company accounts. The company should maintain only those accounts or records that the company directors consider necessary for their own use, and these can be kept anywhere in the world. This is a stark contrast with the European Union, which requires regular accounting. Bureaucracy like this costs money. Companies who are by law not required to spend as much money on bureaucracy save money. This leads to more money being reinvested back into the improvement of the product for the end user. All of this sounds great. Is it legal? After hearing all of the benefits of going offshore, you might wonder if this is even legal. Well, the answer is yes. You're not breaking any laws by going offshore. Just think about it. Just because you are born in a country does not mean you must forever live and operate in this country, right? Do you believe your country is the absolute best in every metric possible? Do you think there are some countries that might do this better than others? As an entrepreneur, it is your task to find where you can operate your business in the most friendly environment possible and give it the highest possible chance of survival. Moreover, until this point, I've always been looking inwards for reasons to go offshore, but you might also want to look outwards. If your competitors are in low tax, low bureaucracy jurisdictions and you are not, you are at a massive disadvantage. Your competitor is likely to be able to replow more of their profits back into their service or product, allowing them to grow fast, whereas you are not able to do so. To some extent, it is a race to the bottom. Crypto usage is global, and it lives digitally around us. It is not bound to the soil to the extent that a traditional brick and mortar shops are. To conclude, setting up a company in an offshore jurisdiction and paying your corporate taxes there is completely legal. Just do your own research. Some jurisdictions are on blacklists, making it difficult to do business. What a lot of people seem to confuse with offshoring is when businesses earn money in a jurisdiction with taxes, then they try not to pay taxes by hiding it in Swiss bank accounts or other private bank accounts. The difference here is that you should have paid your taxes, but you didn't. You are now hiding your income that should be taxed. This is different from setting up your business in an offshore jurisdiction where you are paying your corporate taxes, and it just happens that the taxes are very low. Now let's quickly go over the downsides of being offshore. First off, you are perceived as less trustworthy. Having a company offshore makes you be perceived as less trustworthy by customers. The public perception of offshoring is that you are cheating the system by taking your business offshore, either to get cheaper labor or pay fewer taxes. This perception makes customers less likely to deal with you after discovering that you operate offshore. Meanwhile, other businesses you might want to work with will consider you high risk. For example, if you wish to open a bank account, which is essential for operating a business, most will not want to work with you. You are a cryptocurrency company, which is considered high risk. In fact, you're also offshore, which is another factor that can be considered high risk. On the topic of banks, on the one hand, there are banks willing to go into business with low regulation and tax jurisdiction companies. On the other hand, do you as a business trust your money to be held by an almost unaccountable entity also in a foreign country, where you can't expect any governmental entity to come to your rescue if you have a problem with the bank? There are some remedies to these issues thanks to blockchain technology. For example, there are blockchain solutions for storing your money, such as Gnosis Safe, where you can store your crypto and pay it out as dividends. So there are technical ways to get around not having a bank temporarily. Of course, it would be best to have a company bank to pay for company expenses, but there are ways to operate without one. It is harder to get proof of location documents. Some documents might be harder to produce than others. For example, when you sign up for Binance, you need to provide proof of residence. When you're offshore, these documents might be difficult, if not outright impossible to produce if you are registered at a shared address. Since your company's address is under a management company, You can't provide any bill or anything of that nature to prove your residence, as it is addressed to the management complex. Third-party crypto companies such as BitPay or Binance will require these documents, so please be aware of this. As you can see, there are very clear pros and cons of starting a cryptocurrency company offshore. Let's go over a quick summary of those pros and cons. Less regulation, allowing you to set up and operate faster. Fewer costs, allowing you to have cheaper products and retain more profits to reinvest. Less trustworthy, fewer entities might want to work with you. Harder to produce documents, hence, some programs might be very difficult to utilize if not impossible. I hope you have learned something new. We are BravoBot. We created and operate a cryptocurrency trading bot platform. You can learn more about it here. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.